Please join me now in welcoming to the stage the 37th Treasurer of the United States and the youngest to hold that office, Fox News contributor Angela Bay Buchanan. Hi, Bay.
Good evening. What an honor it is to be here, to be part of this great tribute to George Washington, our founding fathers. I want to thank Jonathan for not only inviting me, but for even putting this on. It's a great and wonderful an event for us to give some more thought to that great founding father of ours, something that is not done enough in this country anymore. And also I want to tell you that it is an honor to follow Jim here to the podium. He's a rare breed in Washington. Not only is he a journalist, he's an investigative reporter who is not only fair but honest. Imagine coming in Washington as somebody who's spent way too much time on television debating, usually with the daggone anchors as much as the liberal. I want to tell you, it's a tribute to Jim to do the job he does, and we're honored to have him here, and me honored to be able to follow him. As you heard, I wrote a book about Hillary, and I'm just thinking maybe it's time to dust that little fellow off and freshen it up and try it again. What do you think? You just heard I was the youngest treasurer of the United States. I thought I might tell you a little bit about how I came to be the treasurer, and how I found out that I was the youngest. I'd been with Ronald Reagan for 5 years. I was with him in '76 when he lost to Gerald Ford, and stayed with him for the intervening years, became the treasurer of his campaign, and he named me the Treasurer of the United States when he won. That's what I asked for. I kind of thought, well, hey, I was good enough for you when you were a candidate. How about now that you're president? He agreed and named me to be the U.S. Treasurer. Well, I took office the day after he took office over there in Treasury Department. Big, beautiful office, a staff already in place, and the press started calling. And in the press, when you have a new administration, what the press is trying to do is do a quick story. There's so many new and fresh faces coming to town. They just want a little angle, a little something interesting. They can do a blurb, quick, new treasurer, something about them, you know. And what they decided to go with me is she's the youngest U.S. treasurer. So they called me up and they said, are you the youngest? And at first I said, yeah, yes I am, because who could be younger? I mean, I was just out of grade school. I needed a driver because I didn't have a license. I mean, I had to be. I was very young at the time. All right. So then I started thinking, you know, those founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton and the rest of them, they also were very young. I better check this out because I'd be misrepresenting myself to the media in the first week here. So I called in the office a fellow who worked for the treasurer. It didn't matter what administration. He had been there many, many years. Through many administrations, his job was work outside the office of the treasurer. So I called in my office and I said, can you find out if I'm the youngest U.S. treasurer? And he said, sure, Ms. Buchanan, no trouble. There's archives right here in the department. It's just downstairs a couple floors. And I said, okay, can you find that out as quickly as you can? 4 to 5 hours pass, and he comes into the office. Ms. Buchanan, you are the youngest U.S. treasurer. You can imagine I was pretty excited. I said, I am? I really am? He said, you have to be. Most of them are dead. That, friends, was my first experience with a federal bureaucrat. Now, I want you to know there's some competent ones, but there's others that share his short-sightedness, shall we say. I had a wonderful experience in Treasury, in the department, as the U.S. Treasurer, and I learned a great deal. But I think the amazing thing was having worked with Ronald Reagan, having known him and going into the administration as his U.S. Treasurer. People often ask me, I speak often around the country, especially to young people, and they'll say to me, what was he like? What is it, you know, that separated him from the others? And if I had to condense it, as I will tonight, I would say he was a humble man. He was a good and humble man. And you don't find many of them in high office. It's just reality. It's just human nature. As you become higher and higher in office and people are calling you senator this or congressman this, it tends to go to the head. But it never did with Ronald Reagan. And I had the opportunity to sit with him just a few months, maybe six months after the attempted assassination. And I sat next to him for lunch. And I said to him, my golly, there's a terrible thing that happens. And how do you, how do you reflect upon it? And he said, Bay, I'm on borrowed time. I know that. I have a job here to do, and the Lord has obviously decided that I need to continue doing it. But I'm on his time, and I recognize that. That's the kind of guy he is. I had a breakfast with a friend of mine today who was in the administration close to the president, and he said after about 4 weeks in office, it's really just a few weeks in office, he found himself in a room. He's about to give a speech. The advance guys and all were elsewhere. They put him in the holding room, and he just happened to be in the holding room with them. It was just the two of them. And he said, Mr. President, and as he told me, he said, I probably called him governor because that's what we always called him. What's it like? What do you feel now that it's been 3-4 weeks as president? And he said, I have one regret. I don't find enough time to think about America. I don't find enough time to think about America. Friends, that's what I want to talk about tonight. This country is in real tough shape. We are, as Jim pointed out, losing our civil rights, our ability. Did you see the news this morning? 92 million Americans, 92 million Americans are not employed. This is, and they'll say, okay, the number's down now. Unemployment's 6.1, it's going down. Well, what kind of way is this to go down? To send people out so far away from the opportunity to work and take care of themselves and their family, as if they just give up. They just give up looking, and that drops your unemployment number. Is this something to be proud of? How can a country as great as ours not offer opportunity to all of us? That is part of what it is to be an American, to recognize that we don't have to be born of money or have the opportunity for great and wonderful education. We have in this country opportunity, the hope that we can have the dreams and be able to pursue those dreams and to be successful, that is in our power as Americans. That's why those millions of immigrants have traveled to this country, because they saw that with that freedom and ability to take charge of themselves, that they can do it. And we have stolen that. We have taken it away from millions and millions. I think, and my heart breaks, and on the campaign trails, especially with my brother, we would come face to face with 50-year-old men who had lost their jobs and will never work again. People out there recognizing they have families they can no longer take care of. You know, the numbers today, the number of people in the workforce has never been as low since, I believe it's 38 years, 2 years before Reagan took office. So Reagan understood this. He came into office knowing that the country then was in difficult shape, and there millions of Americans had also lost hope at that time. And he came into office, he recognized that not only did he have to have a policy, and his policy was specific, and you all, I'm sure, remember it. You know, you have to, as he said, get the government off the backs of the people and cut the taxes and cut regulation and cut the size of government and make certain we can control that inflationary number. It's a 4-point plan. He implemented it, but it wasn't just that. It wasn't about government policy alone. He recognized that he needed to instill in Americans once again that hope, that dream that they can do this. And as he would say, the government can't do this. We can't create jobs. It's only you that can do it, and you can. Americans are always up to the task, up to the challenge. They can do this. And he inspired people to start businesses, to start thinking of the future and what they're capable of doing. And they did it. And we created millions and millions and millions of jobs because we had a leader who thought about America, about the people in this country. And he figured out a way to make certain that this responsibility of ours to take care of ourselves and our families was reignited, that they could be proud and they could know with a little extra hard work they can do this too. And America became a prosperous nation once again. And here we are today. And what's the message from Washington today? You don't know nothing out there. You don't build your own businesses. Nothing happens without government. We know best. We know best your kids need to be taught. We know best what food they should eat. You know, I panicked a little bit when Michelle got into that food stuff because there was a child was sent home because they looked in the lunch bag and found I thought, what do they have, a bunch of cookies? You know, something like my mother would have given me because I didn't eat anything in those days. She put in anything I liked because she knew I needed something to make it through the day. And they said, the kid had a ham and cheese sandwich. I said, a ham and cheese sandwich, I wouldn't eat that. But the kid had a good and decent lunch, something the kid liked. No way. Send them home, made her go to the cafeteria, and charged the family for the $2 for the lunch. Okay? Now, what is the government doing? Telling us what to feed our children. How do they know what's best to be taught and not taught? Did you see the other day a child responded when one child sneezed, and the kid automatically said, God bless you. They were suspended. And the principal said, I'll not have that God talk in my school. What do you want him to say? Why don't you go to blankety, kid, for sneezing? I mean, God bless you. They're now trying to take the pledge out of our schools because of the word God. Jim talked a lot about what's going on in Washington now, and I have learned something. I see this Obamacare, this absolute disastrous policy. And I followed it carefully as it proceeded through Congress. And they kept saying, well, you're not going to know what's in it yet, you know, in these debates. It's got to pass first, then we'll figure it out. I was like, I don't understand this, it's just politicians saying things. No, we don't understand what's in it, but it's going to be good, and people really love it when they see it. And so I just took it for a grain of salt. And now I understand more as I followed it in the last couple months. Last year or so, I've learned a little bigger thing about our laws. And I guess I should have realized it, but it just took me an extra day or two, more so than most people, that this is how they make our laws now. It used to be that Congress had the responsibility to pass a law, and then you send it up, and the president signs it, and then the government, the bureaucrats, the agencies, they implement it. Well, now, the central planners on the Hill, the congressional staffers, deliberately write the bills so they're ambiguous. They don't care that it doesn't make sense or it's not clear or how to work things. It is deliberate because they want the agencies to implement it. And the courts have agreed. 2007, when it was quite clear Congress did not intend for the EPA to take total charge of the air, they said no. Congress passed a law, Clean Air Act, that's the responsibility of the EPA. So now the EPA runs amok, just runs amok. And we cannot get control of it. I mean, their target is to shut down businesses they don't like. They have their own agenda, they're going to shut your business down. Well, how American is that? Well, it doesn't matter that Congress has not in any way granted them that power, but the laws now are like an aspiration, an inspiration as to what we would like. Clean air, affordable care, affordable health care. That's the goal. And then throw the power up to an agency and let them do anything they want. Run amok on businesses and on families, on churches, anything they choose. Nothing gets in their way. That's what we're looking at. And I look and think of all that happens in this country and all that those who've gone before us have done. You now have a president who allows his agencies to do what they want. We have a Justice Department that is just beyond belief, violating the rights of Americans rather than giving them just the basic, you're innocent before You have to be proven guilty. You're innocent. That's the assumption. Not anymore. Not if Mr. Holder doesn't like what's happened, boy. Not at all. Basic fairness. And then, of course, there's the laws. The laws they don't like. Well, we just don't enforce them. We do not enforce laws we do not like. I was part of a group on the immigration battles over the years. And a number of years ago when George Bush was president, I was very much opposed to the amnesty being proposed by McCain, Kennedy, and supported by the president. And so I put together a group, and I realized, what are we going to do? With the Senate vote in a conference committee, we would be done. They would have had a tens of millions would have received amnesty. And I greatly feared for the country, because it would just be a matter of a couple, 20, 30 years before we had the same number, if not more, illegals coming to the country. It is a magnet policy if you pass an amnesty. That is something I felt very strongly about, and so I was very concerned. We met, we tried to figure out what to do, and we did not have, we had the press against us, we had both parties against us, we had the national leaders against us, we had corporate America against us, the chamber against us, you name it, they were against us. And I just said, well, the only people we have, only thing that's in favor on our side is the American people. We knew we had them. So I went around the country to try to do as much radio and TV and town hall meetings as I could, especially in states where there was vulnerable senators and congressmen, to try to raise the issue, to say, listen, it's coming, and you're the only thing left between us and this just enormous amnesty. And people kept asking me, well, why is it? We got a Republican president, a Republican House. How could this possibly be? And I voted for George Bush. How could he be doing? And I had this answer, and I said, well, he believes in this. He wants to have an open relationship with Mexico, or he wants this free trade, and they're taking it to the furthest, whatever it be. I tried to explain it. And after several stops, several days on this trail, I realized this is all wrong. That's not the answer. That was completely wrong for me to try to explain what Washington was doing. These Americans that I was in front of were as concerned as I was. And what they were saying is, why? Why Washington? I so often hear that today. What are they doing back there? How could they be doing that? That's so awful. Well, the answer is not, well, they're liberals, or they're this, or they're that. The answer is, it's incumbent upon us to change it. That's the answer. If you don't like what's going on in Washington, we can't sit back and say we don't like it. We don't like that. In the words of George Washington, Sacred Fire of Liberty. The sacred fire of liberty is entrusted in the hands of the American people. The American people. That is not the elected officials. That's not the rich. That's not the famous. It is not the corporations. It is us. It is us. And when I think back to George Washington and what he did, all that he did, against enormous odds, as I believe it was he told Adam, I'm not sure which one, but I think it was he told John Adams, I don't think I can win it. But did you think for a moment he hesitated? He went full, he put down everything, as did those other founding fathers. Everything he had was on the line. His life, the life of his family, all his assets, all his businesses, everything was thrown in and put on the table for this country. If you think of all the people that have stepped up during the First World War, during the Second World War, they just went. They just went. I heard a story today of a senator who was well, at the time he wasn't a senator, he was an accomplished attorney. And Senator Strom Thurmond, actually. And someone told me the story today, which is the first time I heard it. He heard that we were bombed. He walked out of his office and went down and signed up. He signed up. And that's what people did all over the country. Well, it's our turn. It's our turn. We need in this country a boldness. We need people willing to stand up and say what they believe. We got to put aside all this political correctness and cautiousness and timidity. We don't have the kind of leaders in this country that we need to take this country and put it back on course. We don't have them. I look at people in Washington, and they're always saying, well, you know, this is good. I agree with you, Bay. I agree. But it's a little controversial. You know, it's a little controversial. We probably shouldn't do this. We should maybe do something else. And so we do things that are safe, and which the pollsters say will bring us votes. And we avoid things that are controversial. Well, that's not leadership. When you have votes in D.C., very familiar party line vote. So there you go. The senators, the congressmen go up, and their staffers whisper, party line, vote yes. What do you mean vote yes? Who's telling me to vote yes? I'm an elected official. I've told the people I represent what I believe, what I think is right for America, what direction the country should be in, and how I'm going to do everything in my power to get it there. And you're taking orders from somebody? That's not a leader. That's a follower. And that's how we've gotten ourselves into the problems we have today. Why do you think there's no immigration policy that is satisfactory? The last one we had was under Ronald Reagan. And we've watched, and people, that's a little controversial. They'll call you racist if you take that stand. And the other side saying it's not popular to vote for increased immigration. And so we do nothing. We keep a hand over our eyes and ears and make certain nobody knows. Friends, I have been called a racist so much, I answer to it. I say, yeah, did you need something? We are Americans. Let them call us what they will. But if we're going to shy away because we're concerned what people will think about us, then we have lost the spirit that George Washington expected of every one of us. If we believe something is right in our hearts, we know this is best, we should be screaming about it. We should be telling people, this policy's wrong, this one's right, this is wrong. Our families should be well aware of where we stand. Our colleagues should know. How are we going to take this country and put it back together? How are we going to make certain it doesn't just slip quietly away? If we ourselves do not do what we need to do, it is our responsibility, and that responsibility was given to us right from George Washington. And when one American after another has stood up and done what they needed to do to keep this country great from one generation to the next, it is now our turn. And if we, each and every one of us, doesn't take it upon ourselves, we will lose this country. That is for certain. It's my prayer that every one of us recognize ourselves as an American with the great and proud ability to speak our minds and let nobody intimidate us as we go forward. Thank you very, very much.